Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Chapter 1. Rebirth. Rain Country. Ling clan residence in Grey Cloud Town. The moon has passed the middle of the night sky. Ling Han spent exactly 10 seconds to confirm one fact: he truly had been reincarnated. Spending 10 seconds just to confirm a fact was extremely inconceivable to a strong person from the heaven tier, but at the same time, it also proved that what had happened to him was just as inconceivable. In his previous life, he stood at the summit of martial arts and had completely unprecedented achievements in the art of alchemy. The three-fire guide that he had invented had even caused a revolution in the field of theory of alchemy, and he was respectfully titled Alchemy Emperor. Still, he was unsatisfied and thought of further advancement, to reach the legendary shattering void tier, to shatter the void, and become immortal. As such, he visited innumerable ancient sites and finally entered Black Blood Valley, overcoming various dangerous obstacles before he discovered an ancient tower. He was not to be disappointed, for golden words appeared on the ancient tower and revealed what was a scroll with supreme skills, named less than Indestructible Heaven Scroll greater than. Training in it to the highest level would allow creation of a body that neither ages nor decays, to coexist with the sky and the earth and to have the same lifespan as the sun and the moon. Note: probably referring to a scroll made of bamboo slips. However, despite being a warrior who has reached the heaven tier, Ling Han still felt that less than Indestructible Heaven Scroll greater than was extremely obscure and difficult to comprehend, feeling as if he was reading a heavenly book, completely at a loss. He forced himself to memorize this collection of supreme skills, and was just about to investigate the ancient tower when the tower jolted slightly, exuding a pillar of heavenly light that instantly shattered his mortal body. However, the strange thing was, his spirit did not actually disperse and entered a state of semi-consciousness, which lasted for more than 10,000 years. In these 10 millennia, his spirit was immersed in analyzing the less than Indestructible Heaven Scroll greater than. He couldn't do anything else during that time anyway. Finally, he comprehended the first layer of the supreme skills described in the scroll. To spend 10,000 years to comprehend only the first layer of a scroll containing skills despite being a warrior of the heaven tier, what kind of concept was that? A warrior of the heaven tier only had the lifespan of less than 1,000 years. Thus, in a normal situation, there would be no one in this world that could fully learn the contents of less than Indestructible Heaven Scroll greater than because, before one had even started comprehending it, they would die of old age first. Yet Ling Han, through this strange occurrence, grasped the first layer of less than Indestructible Heaven Scroll greater than, and he was now suddenly reincarnated and reborn in the body of a 16-year-old young man that shared the same name, Ling Han. It was extremely inconceivable. No matter how it happened, I am reborn. Although this body has only reached the second layer of body refining tier, and couldn't be any more trashy than this, I was once a warrior of the heaven tier, standing at the top of martial Tao, and a grandmaster of alchemy. If the body's condition is poor, then I shall use medicinal pills to compensate for its shortcomings. I do not believe I will not be able to return to the top. Moreover, I can finally train in the less than Indestructible Heaven Scroll greater than. This is a collection of supreme skills, so powerful that, it may not be from this mortal plane, but from the legendary immortal plane instead. Otherwise, how is it possible for me to spend 10,000 years and only grasp the first layer? In this life, I will definitely be able to exceed all those who came before, and become immortal. Additionally, what is the matter with this body? 16 years old, and yet the guy had only reached the second layer of body refining tier. Could it be that the martial Tao of the current time is dying? Bang! Along with an explosion-like sound, uncountable memories flooded his mind. They belonged to the other Ling Han, and thus were the memories of the original owner of this body. Through this process, two completely different minds melded together and formed one, no longer separate from each other. I see. Ling Han nodded in his thoughts. The reason why he was only at the second layer of the body refining tier was because his spirit base was of a too poor quality. The prerequisite to train as a warrior was that one needed to have a spirit base. Only with a spirit base could one absorb the spiritual chi from heaven and earth, train one's body and transform the spiritual chi into their own origin power. Some types of spirit bases absorb the spiritual chi quickly and some absorb it more slowly. To differentiate between them, spirit bases were categorized into 4 major grades: heaven, earth, black and yellow. Every major grade was further divided into 3 minor levels: high, medium and low. The best type was the heaven grade high level, and the poorest type was the yellow grade low level. The grade of spirit base was decided by its purity. The purer it was, the better. Ling Han's spirit base was in utter disarray, containing all 5 elements. In the world of martial arts, this was the worst type of spirit base. It could barely be considered yellow grade low level. It was the reason why he had only reached the 2nd layer of body refining tier at his age of 16, while others of the same age had at least reached the 4th or 5th layer of body refining tier. Ling Han in his previous life possessed a heaven grade spirit base, which was also a high level one, the 9 yang fire spirit base. In addition to that, he had an incomparable talent in the art of alchemy and used pills to support his cultivation, spending only 200 years to reach the heaven tier, something never achieved by anyone else in the past. 5 elements disarray spirit base. This is the lowest level of a spirit base. No wonder my predecessor only reached the 2nd layer of body refining tier no matter how much he worked and trained. To me, this 5 elements disarray spirit base is a bit of a problem, but with alchemical pills, I will need only 4 years to return to the top at most. Ye! Ling Han exclaimed in his heart, and his face showed an expression of disbelief and utmost surprise. Using his extremely strong mental prowess to once again peer at the spirit base in his dantian, he was stunned for a moment. Then, shock gave way to exuberant joy, showing on his face. Note: dantian refers to sea of qi or similar entity. Believed to be located in the pubic region inside one's body, it's a key organ related to cultivating qi. It is also important in traditional Chinese medicine, mainly in reference to qi. This isn't the 5 elements disarray spirit base. The 5 elements are actually in complete balance and form the shape of a lotus. That means, this is the 5 elements mix chaos lotus, the best of the best, even rarer than the 9 yang fire spirit base. This is the spirit base hailed as the spirit base of the immortal grade. My predecessor had slow progress, but it was because immortal grade spirit base requires specialized skills to realize its true prowess. And it just so happens that I have hold of skills that suit this 5 elements mix chaos lotus, the 5 elements heaven grade skill. 100 years. No. I only need 50 years, and I can once again reach the heaven tier. Even with his status as a warrior of the heaven tier from his previous life, Ling Han couldn't control his expression, now full of joy. The spirit base was something one was born with. There was no way to change it at all. In his previous life, to shatter the empty void and become immortal, he had visited various ancient sites and obtained many different types of secret arts and cultivation techniques. The 5 elements heaven grade skill was one of them. In his previous life, he stood at the top of the martial world, and in this life, he would once again bask in glory and create an undying legend. How did my predecessor die? Ling Han flipped through his memories, and anger quickly appeared on his face. His predecessor was the only son of the Ling clan's head, Ling Dongxing. His mother and grandparents had all passed away very early on. The Ling clan was a clan of martial artists. Every clan member knew martial arts, and was proud of the fact. So, how did someone like Ling Dongxing become the clan head? That was because he was the strongest and had reached his position through battling. But Ling Han was regarded as trash since his childhood because of the issue with his spirit base, and had received much ridicule from those around him. To give his son a bright future, Ling Dongxing made an agreement with Huyang Academy. Huyang Academy would receive Ling Han as a disciple and put all efforts into training him in exchange for Ling Dongxing entering Purple Light Ground Valley to find and retrieve something Huyang Academy had lost many years ago. Huyang Academy was an academy under the jurisdiction of the imperial dynasty of the Rain country, possessing uncountable resources. If they decided to put all effort into training him, even the worst kind of trash would be able to reach element gathering tier. But the people from Huyang Academy were not idiots. If that item was easily retrievable, then why would they have given such generous conditions? Purple Light Ground Valley was a place fraught with danger. One wrong step could lead to death, but since it was for his son's sake, Ling Dongxing departed 7 days ago without hesitation. The day before, people from Huyang Academy had come and informed the Ling clan that, as promised, they would come to pick him up on this day. Yet at that moment, the chief butler of Ling clan, Ling Xuanhuan, had come to talk with his predecessor. He wanted him to give up this precious position to his own grandson, Ling Yun. The reason provided was that Ling Yun was a genius with boundless prospects, and such an opportunity couldn't be wasted on trash. His predecessor of course did not agree. After all, this was something his father had used his life in exchange to obtain. However, although Ling Xuanhuan come to talk, he was actually only informing his predecessor and didn't come there to listen to the other's opinion at all. His predecessor could no longer endure and acted, but Ling Xuanhuan was a warrior of the element-gathering tier. Just one finger was enough to overwhelm him. How could he resist? With just one punch, his predecessor was seriously wounded, and was subsequently confined in his own room, obviously not to let him create an issue in front of the people from Huyang Academy. Once Ling Dongxing returns, everything would have already been concluded. The seriously wounded Ling Han thus died in anger. Ling Han harumphed. They have gone too far. His father used his life to obtain this position for him, and Ling Xuanhuan and his grandson dare to snatch it away just like that. These extremely shameless dogs. He couldn't accept this. He rose up from his bed, and instantly felt ache throughout his whole body. True, he had obtained a new life, but the injuries on his body would not recover on their own. The spirit base has been damaged. Ling Han's brow wrinkled. That attack from Ling Xuanhuan had actually damaged his spirit base, and damage to the spirit base was a very troublesome issue. Ordinary medical stones would be of no help. According to my understanding, there are 7 types of pills that can heal damage to the spirit base, though 4 of them require ingredients that are so expensive that even selling the whole Ling clan would not be enough. Moreover, my spirit base had only received light damage, and thus does not require such high-grade pills. As for the remaining 3 types, 2 of them require molding to form pills, and that would be too much of a burden at my current cultivation of second layer of body refining tier. If that's so, then I only have one choice: Origin Heart Recover Spirit Powder, which can be created by simply mixing the required ingredients at the correct ratio and cooking them to become a medical concoction. I will heal my injuries first, and then go and stop Ling Xuanhuan and his grandson. Although I do not care about this position, I will definitely not allow the opportunity that my father has traded his life for to be used to benefit this shameless grandfather-grandson pair. He sat down with his legs crossed, and started circulating Indestructible Heaven Scroll. Note: yes, the same name, but this time as a cultivation technique. This was his first time circulating this cultivation technique, which might have been of the immortal grade, but because he has analyzed it for 10,000 years, it now was something that could be done easily. Weng, weng, weng. Powerful life signs appeared suddenly inside his body. His origin power was greatly depleted, but his injuries were quickly healing. Within just a few minutes, he was fully recovered. It is worthy of the name, Indestructible Heaven Scroll. I have only just started training in it, and have already felt such remarkable effects, yet this is completely different from other types of cultivation techniques. Ordinary cultivation techniques make use of the spirit base to absorb spiritual chi from the sky and the earth to transform into origin power, and Indestructible Heaven Scroll is the exact opposite, using origin power to refine the body and heal injuries. Once my training reaches the highest level, achieving immortality may not be impossible. That is why it is called Heaven Scroll. Unfortunately, the level now is not enough, otherwise I could use Indestructible Heaven Scroll to heal my spirit base. Ling Han opened his eyes and, looking at the growing light outside his window, murmured softly, "Now, I shall go and meet with Ling Xuanhuan, that shameless old man, and give him a surprise." He put on his shoes, walked towards the doorway and opened the door. In the doorway was a tall figure, blocking his advance. This man's name was Xuanhuan, one of Ling Zhongquan's lackeys. "Young Master Han, Chief Butler has commanded that you have to stay in your room today," Zhang Yun said with a laugh. Although the person in front of him was the Sun the clan head, he was also a notorious piece of trash, and just a joke in his eyes. Ling Han's gaze grew cold, and said, "You dare hinder me?" It was exactly that. The chief butler had told him that he couldn't allow Ling Han to come out and get in their way at all costs. If things come to head, he even had the permission to attack him. Thus, Zhang Yun smiled falsely and said, "This is a command from the chief butler." Young Master Han, please do not make things difficult for me. Ling Zhongquan, this old dog, is truly cautious. He has seriously wounded me and still feels insecure, going so far as to assign someone to guard the door, Ling Han thought. This also showed how important it was to Ling Zhongquan for his grandson to enter Huyang Academy. If this hope was shattered, Ling Zhongquan's despair and fury could be imagined. Get out of my way. Ling Han spoke coldly. Young Master Han, this was ordered by the chief but... Pa. Ling Han raised his hand and gave him a slap, speaking coldly, what are you doing? I told you to get out of my way, and you don't. What? He had actually received a slap from a piece of trash. Xuanhuan covered his face in disbelief. This piece of trash actually dared to resist him. What kind of joke was this? He was furious, and recalled Ling Zhongquan's words from before. If things come to head, he had permission to attack. He could not stop his hate from rising, and said thickly, Young Master Han, this is what you have forced me to. Pa. Ling Han raised his hand once more, and gave him another solid slap. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Chapter 2. Might. Xuanhuan was about to go crazy. He had actually received 2 slaps from a piece of trash. In his fury, he did not consider how a piece of trash at only 2nd layer of body refining tier could slap someone at 4th layer of body refining tier twice. Opening his mouth to release a great roar, he pounced at Ling Han. There was only one thought in his head now, and that was to ruthlessly beat up this piece of trash. His one punch was filled with great power, bringing with it a slight breeze as it headed towards his target. Ling Han was oddly calm and immobile. In his previous life, he could naturally get rid of 10,000 of Xuanhuan with a flick of his fingers, but now he only had the power of the 2nd layer of body refining tier. The difference in strength was a bit problematic, but that was it. The one controlling this body was, after all, a former warrior of the heaven tier. His strength may have been lost, but his insight remained. Xuanhuan only needed to raise his hand or move his leg, and Ling Han would be able to deduce where his punch would be heading towards and where his feet would be moving to. As a result, by the time Xuanhuan's punch flew out, Ling Han had already reacted. Who? The fist had hit its target and Xuanhuan revealed a cold grin. Once hit with his punch, its overwhelming power would instantly cause Ling Han to lose all means of resistance, leaving him completely at his opponent's mercy. He had hit his target. Xuanhuan's face revealed his surprise. Although his punch appeared to have hit Ling Han's face, it had actually missed by a slight margin. Ling Han managed to take a step back in time and just barely managed to dodge his fist. His fist stopped exactly in front of the tip of Ling Han's nose. It was almost touching it, so perfectly calculated as if he had used a ruler to carefully measure the distance. It must be a coincidence, Xuanhuan thought in his heart. And it was at this moment that Ling Han's palm once more flew towards him. Pa! A loud, crisp noise was heard, and Xuanhuan received another solid slap. Damn it! Xuanhuan spat out a mouthful of spit, let out a loud shout, and once again launched his fist, punching towards Ling Han. Who? Xuanhuan's fist once again missed. It was as if Ling Han moved at the same moment as his upper body flew backwards. Using both hands to push himself off the ground, his right foot automatically kicked out, hitting the spot in between Xuanhuan's legs with a soft sound. Ow! Even if his cultivation was at the 4th layer of body refining tier, it didn't matter, he would still be unable to have the ability, iron balls, and this kick had hit its target solidly. Xuanhuan suddenly dropped down onto his knees, both hands gripping his crotch as large droplets of cold sweat appeared on his face. You're so treacherous. Xuanhuan twitched, his whole face was so twisted it looked inhuman. Pa! Ling Han once again gave him a slap. Xuanhuan's mouth opened, and spat out a few broken teeth. Ling Han naturally had no sympathy for him, and said, a dog will always be a dog. As expected, it would not be able to spit out ivory. Note: no ivory comes from the mouth of a dog, meaning, no good words are to be expected from a scoundrel. Xuanhuan was extremely furious. He had actually been made to kneel on the ground and received a violent slap from someone at the 2nd layer of body refining tier. What kind of humiliation was this? He wanted to counterattack, but the kick that his privates received had directly removed all his power to resist. Every move he took made his balls hurt in agony. But he definitely couldn't allow Ling Han to ruin Ling Zhongquan's important business. Otherwise, if he couldn't complete the task that the other had assigned him, going by Ling Zhongquan's character, he would definitely be killed. Han, young Master Han, listen to me, you can't leave this place. Actually, you have been poisoned. Once you leave this room, you will die of poison. His thoughts were anxious, so he tried to quickly think of something that would make Ling Han stay here. Ling Han could not help but smile. Did he think that this kind of terrible acting would be able to deceive him? He flew up and kicked Xuanhuan away. He didn't have any free time to waste on this lackey. He had to stop Ling Zhongquan's evil scheme from succeeding instead. Otherwise, his father would have risked his life only to benefit others. As for Xuanhuan, Ling Han naturally would not take this kind of minor character into consideration. After all, Ling Zhongquan only needed to see him appear, and would naturally come to deal with Xuanhuan. He had no need to dirty his own hands. Don't go, don't go. Xuanhuan's sobs and pleas spread out from behind him. It was as if he could already see his own miserable end. Accomplice to a villain, he only had himself to blame, and didn't deserve the slightest bit of sympathy. Ling Han strode forwards. After a few minutes, he arrived at the inner doorway to the living room. He hadn't stepped in yet but already could hear a loud, aged voice, "Miss Lu, please, please." The living room had an inner and outer doorway. The inner doorway was connected to the inner court, while the outer doorway would lead to the main door. Looking out through the curtains, he could see a group of 5 walking in. The group comprised of 5 people, 4 male, 1 female. Aside from the young woman, Ling Han could recognize the 4 men. They were all Ling clan clansmen. One of them was an elderly man, the chief butler, Ling Zhongquan. 2 of the other 3 were middle-aged men of around 40 years, both Ling Zhongquan's sons. The last one was a young man, older than Ling Han by about 1 or 2 years, and that was none other than Ling Zhongquan's eldest grandson, Ling Yuan. Ling Han looked towards the only female in the group. Even with his eyesight from his previous life as one at the heaven tier, his eyes brightened. This young woman was truly beautiful. Her looks were like autumn, her skin as fair as the moon. She seemed to be only 17 or 18, but already possessed an elegant demeanor and beauty that could bring disaster to country and people. It was just that her aura was as cold as if she was an icy mountain, driving away any who dared to approach. This young girl would certainly be the person sent by Huyang Academy. What a coincidence. Ling Han's eyes widened slightly. He had discovered something even more coincidental, and his lips couldn't help but reveal a smile. Both parties sat separately in their positions as guest and host. A few maidservants came forwards to serve fragrant tea and stood respectfully at the sides of the 5 people's seats. Has the person from the Ling clan that you are sending to the academy gotten ready? Lu Yutong opened her mouth and spoke, her voice both cold and melodious, with a bit of disdain. What she hated the most were people who would enter the academy through the back door. Although she was commanded to come here, she had no good feelings towards this future younger brother disciple. Ready, ready, Ling Zhongquan hurriedly spoke. Although he was old enough to be the young girl's grandfather, both parties were of the same level, element gathering tier. One's skill in martial arts did not depend on age. Only the strong would be respected. Ling Zhongquan even had a feeling that this young girl's level was slightly higher than his own. He was at the 6th layer of element gathering tier, while this girl could be of the 7th layer, or maybe even 8th. This also caused him to be even more eager to send his own grandson to Huyang Academy. In a few years, he would be of an even higher level than Ling Dongxing and help him snatch the position of the clan head. Mu Yun, quickly come and greet your elder sister disciple Lu. The old man turned and spoke to Ling Yuan. Yes, grandfather. Ling Yun spoke with great respect. Cupping his hands in Lu Yutong's direction, he said, Yun greets elder sister disciple Lu. There was heat in his gaze. He felt wild ambition when looking upon this cold, beautiful and incomparably strong beauty. He believed that, with enough time spent together, he would be able to capture the heart of the beauty. Lu Yutong was slightly surprised. She recalled that the person from Ling clan she was to escort was named Ling Han. However, it was none of her business. She was only responsible for bringing a person from the Ling clan back to the academy. Since you're ready, then let's depart, she said calmly. Miss Lu, why don't you stay for a few days in our humble abode, so that we can express a small bit of our gratitude? Ling Zhongquan hurriedly said. He wanted to get close to this young girl, and in the future, she would also be able to take care of his grandson. No need, Lu Yutong rejected coldly, turned and was about to leave. Please wait. A voice was heard, and Ling Han strode out. The faces of Ling Zhongquan and his group changed slightly. However much they looked down on this piece of trash of the Ling clan, they were the thieves right now, and thieves would naturally feel guilty. Younger brother Han, weren't you injured? Return quickly to your room to rest, Ling Yuyun reacted the quickest. He shot forwards and reached Ling Han's side, extending his hand. He wanted to fall upon Ling Han at the first moment, without giving the other any opportunity to open his mouth. He was at the 7th layer of body refining tier, and his strength was not something Xuanhuan could compare to. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Chapter 3. You're sick, I can heal you. There were altogether 9 layers of the body refining tier. The 1st to 3rd layers were usually called the early stage of body refining tier, 4th to 6th levels were the middle stage, and 7th to 9th levels were the late stage. Martial artists from 3 different stages had a great disparity in their strength. And the higher the layer, the larger the disparity was. A martial artist at the 9th layer facing a martial artist at the 8th layer would have an overwhelming advantage. However, a martial artist at the 1st layer of body refining tier against a martial artist from the 2nd layer would not be at such a large disadvantage. Previously, Ling Han seemed to be only 2 layers below Xuanhuan, but there was a major disparity of 1 stage between them. However, Ling Yuyun was at the 7th layer of body refining tier, and was of the late stage of body refining tier, higher than Ling Han by 2 stages. This was an unbreachable gap. Even if Ling Han had once been one of the strongest heaven tier warriors, he would still be unable to breach this huge difference in ability. After all, the base he had now was too low. So what to do? Ling Han's eyes grew serious, and taking advantage of the moment the other's palm was heading towards him, he suddenly raised his fist in an attack. Ling Yuyun could not help showing an expression of ridicule. Although he didn't know how Ling Han managed to come here, he was a well-known piece of trash amongst the whole of Ling clan. What kind of threat could he be to himself? He circulated origin power, and his chest muscles hardened, becoming as dense as iron. So what if he received a hit from Ling Han? The important thing now was to restrict Ling Han and not allow him the chance to open his mouth. Sure enough. The corners of Ling Han's mouth curved in a slight smile. The other's reaction was completely within his expectations. You're about to suffer this time. Peng. Because Ling Yuyun did not make any move to dodge, this sudden punch hit its target solidly. Ling Yuyun still looked disdainful as he extended his hand and placed it on Ling Han's shoulder. Young brother Han, I'll send you back. He hadn't finished speaking before he spat out a mouthful of blood. This wasn't even the end. He felt his chest was boiling, as if he was about to throw up all his internal organs. He suddenly fell and sat down on the ground, his expression extremely ugly. Teng, 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 Ling Han retreated a total of 7 steps. He stopped once his back met the wall behind him. What was this? Ling Han had used a special technique in that punch. Its name was hill separating shock. It allowed power to pass through the opponent's defenses before exploding, which was why although Ling Yuyun had used origin power to defend, Ling Han's power still managed to pass through his muscles and explode inside his body. Naturally, it became an extremely heavy blow to Ling Yuyun. This was also thanks to the fact that Ling Yuyun was at the 7th layer of body refining tier. Otherwise, he would have been seriously injured by this punch. Even death would not be an impossibility. To look down upon one of the strongest of the heaven tier warriors was to bring trouble onto oneself. Still, 7th layer of body refining tier was still 7th layer of body refining tier. The rebound of origin power was still far from what Ling Han could handle. Thus, he too had been jarred to the point that he staggered and retreated. Due to the shock of power, his right arm was suddenly dislocated. Ling Han did not even wrinkle his brow and used his left hand to twist his right arm back into position. It wasn't until that moment that Ling Zhongquan and his group finally reacted. They were all angered and shocked. Their anger was because Ling Han had actually wounded Ling Yun, while their shock was because they were wondering, how had this piece of trash managed to accomplish such a feat? Meanwhile, the few maidservants were even more dumbfounded. Was this still the young Master Han they knew? How could he be so fierce that, with one punch, he had injured young Master Yun, who has always been known as a genius, to the point that the latter was throwing up blood? Little beast, how dare you be so ruthless? Ling Zhongquan immediately shouted. Yun was only worried about you and wanted to send you back to your room, yet you did something so ruthless, you crazy dog. He sure was sly, immediately making a verbal counterattack through false accusation. Ling Yun too regained his breath. When his eyes fell upon Ling Han, they were filled with murder. He was the genius of the Ling clan, and yet he was actually injured by a piece of trash. How could his ego accept such a blow? Ling Han completely ignored the two, and instead looked at Lu Yutong. Miss, you're sick. This. Ling Zhongquan was about to make a move, but when he heard these words, he forcefully held back. The other was a student from Huyang Academy, and Huyang Academy was established by the imperial family of Rain Country. Those who managed to enroll there would definitely have come from a strong, huge background, and would be something that far exceed the background of a person at element gathering tier. However, Ling Han actually said that the other was sick. Was he seeking death? Very good. Now implicate Ling Dongxing too, Chief Butler thought. Someone would do his dirty work for him and he would be able to easily take the position of clan head. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Ling Dongxing, Ling Dongxing, you would never have thought that your son is not only a piece of trash, but also someone who will ruin you. When Lu Yutong looked at Ling Han, her eyes revealed slight disgust. She was born very beautiful, and was also the princess of one of the 8 great clans of the imperial city, the Lu clan. The Lu clan was an existence that was only below the imperial family in status, and naturally, she did not lack any number of young men who tried to ingratiate themselves with her. Some would even try the opposite, pretending to be cold to attract her interest. She naturally thought that Ling Han was the same sort of pest, only that he was using the method of cursing her. This was the first time that she had encountered this tactic, but this did not give her any feeling of novelty, only disgust. How dare you? Ling Zhongquan was an observant man, and shouted in a timely manner, kneel down quickly and apologize to Miss Lu. Ling Han gave a calm smile. In this world, aside from my parents, I will kneel down to no one. Looking at Lu Yutong, he walked towards her. He stopped once he was about 3 steps away. That was because he knew this was the limit of the other's patience. If he went any closer, she would definitely take action. He didn't want to be hit one bit. Since you were 10, have you been fainting every year for no reason? In the beginning, it was once a year, but it has become more and more frequent. At present, you should be fainting once every 10 days, Ling Han spoke with a lowered voice, only allowing Lu Yutong alone to hear his words. Lu Yutong's expression changed. This illness of hers was only known to a few select people, even in the Lu clan. How did Ling Han manage to find out about it? She couldn't refrain from once again sizing up Ling Han as she asked, you know the reason. Naturally, Ling Han proudly nodded. Otherwise, he would not speak such shocking words. It's 3 yin vanishing veins. It's a kind of curse from the gods. Those who possess the 3 yin vanishing veins would usually only be able to live until 20. That's because during your 20th year, you will once again fall unconscious, forever unable to regain consciousness. Lu Yutong was silent, but she believed Ling Han's words because after her symptoms became more and more serious, her family had brought her to visit many famous doctors. However, every doctor she visited could not do anything, and didn't even know the name of the illness. Still, one of them deduced that she would faint more and more frequently and, one day, she would no longer wake up. Now, she had finally found out what illness she had, but what of it? All the famous doctors in Rain Country could not do anything, so she naturally would not think that Ling Han had any way to help. I can heal you, Ling Han said at that very moment. Lu Yutong's heart trembled, but her face did not reveal anything. If you can heal me, I can allow you to become a court official, or even let you have uncountable resources for cultivation. Ling Han mustered a smile. There is only one way to heal the 3 yin vanishing veins, and that is to train in 3 yin mysterious arts, and it just so happens that I know this art. I can teach you, but there is one condition: you have to become my follower. Lu Yutong could not restrain anger in her heart. She was the princess of the Lu clan, and was also a genius in martial arts. At the age of 17, she had already reached the 8th layer of element gathering tier. And now a puny little martial artist at 2nd layer of body refining tier actually wanted to take her in as a follower. Where did he get his confidence and boldness from? Don't feel wronged, because I can give you a wider horizon. I can let you rise to a higher level in martial arts. The 7 great vanishing lands, the 4 great dead valleys, the 3 great bottomless oceans, have you seen them before? Ling Han's sweet temptation followed. Although the 3 yin vanishing veins were a curse in nature, there was always hope in every situation. Their owner would also usually possess a heaven-grade spirit base. Once trained in 3 yin mysterious arts, the owner would naturally soar. Lu Yutong could not stop eagerness from rising within her heart. She had a passionate desire to pursue martial arts, and it was the focus of everything in her life. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Chapter 4. The First Command. Lu Yutong was affected in her heart, but to agree to become Ling Han's follower was an impossible request. Biting her red lips slightly, she spoke, "Change your condition." Ling Han smiled slightly. "You should be at the top of the 8th layer of element gathering tier, right? I'll gift you 2 verbal chants to show my sincerity. 3 yin supporting element, plan of square path, 3 flowers assemble at the apex, shattering the approach of heaven." At first, Lu Yutong was not concerned. This brat was only at the 2nd layer of body refining tier. What kind of shocking verbal chant could he know? He was most likely only pretending to be mysterious. But when she heard these 2 verbal chants, the origin energy within her body began to stir without reason, as if the door to the 9th level of element gathering tier was opening. She was moved. Although she knew that she would be able to break through to the 9th level of element gathering tier, but the estimated time should be around a month later. However, she had a strong feeling that now she only needed about a day. No, even right at this moment, she could enter seclusion and proceed to break through. This was too much. It was just 2 verbal chants, and yet they had so much effect on her. Those were 2 verbal chants from 3 yin mysterious art. How is it? Ling Han smiled. Consecutively, he raised his voice and said, "Become my follower, and I will teach you supreme godly skills." Pooh. Ling Zhongquan and group puffed, unable to hold back their hearty laughter any longer. What could be more hilarious than this? Just a piece of trash, and he wanted to have a genius from Huyang Academy become his follower. And even said he would teach her supreme godly skills. Such bragging skills and guts were truly remarkable, and probably the only things supreme and godly amongst his skills. The idiot had no measure of his own ability. It was such a joke. The maidservants covered their small mouths. They too knew Ling Han's background and, looking at the attitude that Ling Zhongquan displayed towards Lu Yutong, knew of how noble a status this young girl was. Lu Yutong's expression turned cold, and suddenly she had arrived in front of Ling Han. Her right hand flashed out and held his neck. "Recite 3 yin mysterious arts, or else I will kill you," she coldly said. Since Ling Han dared to ask such a thing from Lu Yutong, he naturally foresaw such a reaction from her, so he only smiled and said, "Then kill me. I wouldn't need to wait too long before I see you on the path to the netherworld. We can be travel companions at that time." Lu Yutong's hold tightened. Although her 5 fingers looked small and smooth, but at this moment, they seemed like iron claws, strangling Ling Han to the point of suffocation. Soon, his face turned red, and his eyes became bloodshot. Ling Han's forelimbs started to twitch violently. Ling Zhongquan and his companions had no intention of interfering. In fact, their deepest hope was to have Lu Yutong kill Ling Han. "Are you going to say it or not?" Lu Yutong slightly loosened her grip. Ling Han forced out a smile, and shook his head determinedly. The current Ling clan was an extremely dangerous place to him. He had to find a strong bodyguard, and would not agree to whatever else Lu Yutong suggested to him. He had to make her his protector. What he lacked now was time. As long as he had the time he needed to become stronger, what did a mere Ling clan count as? Lu Yutong once again tightened her grip, and Ling Han's body started to twitch violently before his forelimbs suddenly drooped. There was no more movement. How stubborn. Lu Yutong sighed internally, and her origin power rushed out and restarted Ling Han's heartbeat. Exhaling, Ling Han once again opened his eyes, and took in large mouthfuls of air. 3 years. Lu Yutong said, no more than 3 years, and within these 3 years, I will obey your commands. 3 years later, she would be 20 years old. If she would not lose consciousness and no longer awaken, then she would be completely free. Pooh. Ling Zhongquan and his group once again made a snort-like sound with their mouths, but this time, it was because of their great shock. They were completely at a loss. Was there some problem with their hearing? They seemed to have heard Lu Yutong assent. Assent to become Ling Han's follower. To become an underling of a piece of trash. This, they must have heard wrongly. Definitely so. Ling Han came back to attention and smiled, before raising his hand. Deal. 3 years would be long enough for him to mature. At least, it would be long enough for him to rise above the level of Ling Zhongquan and his groupies. He would no longer have to worry about any threat to his life. Pa. Lu Yutong extended her hand as well, and joined it with his appraised palm. This was a promise between martial artists. What a delicate hand. When their palms were joined together, Ling Han could not help but feel his heart stir. Although he was once a strong warrior of the heaven tier, and furthermore, the Alchemy Emperor, and there were uncountable beautiful women who threw themselves at him in his previous life, since his soul had melded with his predecessors, it was as if he too had returned to a youthful, impulsive age. The passion that he had not experienced for a long time was burning inside his body, making him feel as if he truly had returned to the age of 16 years old. Ling Han enjoyed this kind of change. This was what living meant. Miss Lu, don't listen to the nonsense this little beast is spouting, let's return to discussing official matters, Ling Zhongquan interrupted. He didn't want Ling Han to continue making mess out of things. And that Xuanhuan, he truly was an idiot. He couldn't even keep proper watch over a piece of trash. Once he returned, he'd make sure to kill him. Chief Butler, Ling Han coldly looked at him, this position in Huyang Academy is what my father risked his own life to obtain. Now my father is risking his life in Purple Light Ground Valley, and yet you shamelessly attempt to snatch this position. Don't you feel your face burning? Impudence! How dare you speak to me this way? Ling Zhongquan suddenly shouted. Lu Yutong previously did not bother about such a matter, but since she now had a deal with Ling Han, her attitude naturally changed. Butler Ling, what is going on here? I need an explanation. Ling Zhongquan could pretend he did not hear Ling Han's words, but he definitely would not be able to do the same with Lu Yutong's words. Not only was she the representative of Huyang Academy, her own ability was above his. What right did he have to ignore Lu Yutong's words? He hurriedly said, it's like this boy is the son of Ling clan head, Ling Dongxing. Thus, Ling Dongxing became selfish, and wanted to give this placement privately to this boy. I'm only thinking of the big picture, to make the most out of this precious position. What grand words, thinking of the big picture. Ling Han smiled coldly. Ling Zhongquan, are you completely without shame? This position was obtained by my father, who is risking his life even now as we speak. What does it have to do with the clan? Why do you need to concern yourself with it? You only want to give this position to your own grandchild, and in future, when his level exceeds my father's, he would be able to help you seize the position of clan head. You want to do such a shameless thing, yet claim to be doing it out of loyalty to the clan, what a shameless dog. Having received such a big, hearty scolding from Ling Han, Ling Zhongquan was furious to the point that his whole body was trembling. He had even come close to spitting out blood in anger. Little beast, how dare you insult me this way? Ling Zhongquan was filled with wrath. He was actually scolded by a piece of trash. If he could not heavily punish Ling Han, he would definitely be angered to the point of internal injury. Ling Han only calmly smiled, and turned to Lu Yutong. I have completely zero interest in enrolling at Huyang Academy. The agreement about the position is cancelled. In exchange, let Huyang Academy compensate me with some medicinal potions. Agreed. Lu Yutong nodded. To expend all efforts to cultivate an individual student would, in the first place, require a large pool of medicinal potions. No. Ling Zhongquan immediately shouted loudly. This position belongs to Mu Yun, none of you can steal it away. Old dog, is there something wrong with your hearing? This position was obviously obtained by my father, what does it have to do with you? Ling Han scoffed. Then he looked at Lu Yutong, saying, now, this is my first command for you. He paused for a moment before saying, restrain this old dog for me, I want to give a few good slaps to this shameless old bastard. Lu Yutong only hesitated for a moment before she nodded. All right. Ling Han had already expressed his sincerity by gifting her 2 valuable verbal chants. Now, she too had to express her own sincerity. What? Lu Yutong truly agreed to become Ling Han's follower. The word, follower, seemed grand, but in truth, it was something like an attendant, a servant. A grand genius from Huyang Academy actually agreed to become someone else's follower. What was this inconceivable affair? But it was reality. Lu Yutong had already stood up, her beautiful eyes focused on Ling Zhongquan and a fierce battle spirit exuded from her graceful figure. Elder sister disciple Lu, don't be deceived by this brat. Ling Muyun yelled, his face filled with shock. He had no way to accept the fact that a talented, intelligent woman like Lu Yutong would actually be deceived by Ling Han's flowery words. Particularly when this stunning beauty was someone he wanted to do his utmost to pursue. Now, it was as if he had eaten 10,000 flies, he felt completely suffocated. Are you going to surrender, or will you wait for me to act? Lu Yutong asked calmly. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Tao. Chapter 5. Thrashing the Old Dog. Lu Yutong was absolutely confident. She was at the 8th layer of element gathering tier, while Ling Zhongquan was only at the 6th layer of element gathering tier. Even though there was only 2 layers difference between the two, one was from the late stage of element gathering, while the other was only in the middle stage. This was the difference of a major level. Ling Zhongquan was both shocked and angered. Miss Lu, are you really going to help this little beast? Old dog, watch what you say, Ling Han said unhurriedly from the side. These words completely infuriated Ling Zhongquan and his companions. You keep saying old dog this, old dog that, and yet you want others to watch their mouths. So the magistrate is free to burn down houses, yet the commoners are forbidden to even light lamps. Too overbearing. Ling Han smiled calmly. He was overbearing, but what of it? In his previous life, he was famous for sweeping his mistakes under the rug and helping those close to him no matter whether they were in the right or in the wrong. In front of outsiders, he would defend his people. Whoever was in the right or in the wrong, he'd discuss that behind closed doors later. Ling Zhongquan, his sons and grandson had gone much too far. With his personality, it'd be strange if he could tolerate such a thing. Lu Yutong did not respond. Her graceful figure flew out as if she was a goddess from heaven, both hands pressing onto Ling Zhongquan, without any ferocity and displaying a sense of unworldly beauty. However, Ling Zhongquan naturally did not feel this way. Cold sweat had already gathered on his forehead. He was in the middle stage of element gathering tier, but the other was in the late stage of that tier. This was an unbreachable gulf. But Ling Zhongquan definitely did not want to be thrashed by Ling Han, this piece of trash, even more so since the latter was a member of the younger generation. Thus, he had to resist with all his might. Even if resistance was futile, he would flee if it came to the worst. Pang! He launched the Ling clan's special skill, 3 flip hands, and advanced towards Lu Yutong. This was a martial skill from the medium level of yellow grade, and was also one of the 3 special skills belonging to the Ling clan. With these 3 skills, Ling clan became one of the 2 most powerful clans in Grey Cloud Town. The power of these skills was naturally fearsome. Unfortunately, his opponent happened to be Lu Yutong. Snapping of the plum hands. The icy beauty spat out lightly. Her small hands smoothly turned over, both as a clap and as a touch. Her movement was indescribably graceful, but its power was extremely fearsome. Her hands drew past, and Ling Zhongquan could only repeatedly retreat, his whole face turning red. Snapping of the plum hands, a martial skill from the high level of yellow grade. His cultivation was suppressed, his martial skills were suppressed. If there was any advantage that Ling Zhongquan could claim over his opponent, then that would be multiple years' worth of battle experience he had. But the problem was that Lu Yutong was a genius of martial Dao. Although she did not have adequate experience, she had a shocking battle comprehension ability that could completely compensate for her inferior battle experience. How could Ling Zhongquan not lose? Through only 50 or 60 moves, Ling Zhongquan was completely restrained, his dantian was restrained, his origin energy could not be circulated, and he was no stronger than a commoner. Grandfather! Father! Ling Muyun and the rest were all shouting. They wanted to rush forward but were too afraid of Lu Yutong's ability, and could only look at Ling Han with fury. They were completely devoid of any intention of self-reflecting, and only felt that it was all Ling Han's fault. If Ling Han had not appeared, then matters would have proceeded as they had planned. Ling Han looked at Lu Yutong, and said, "If you make a slight change to your battle style, you will be even more powerful. For example, during your 17th move, you only had to further lower your right hand, and with your left hand clapping 2 inches further forward, you would have already restrained your opponent." Lu Yutong had not been convinced at first. She only thought that Ling Han had found some kind of ancient treasury, and had thus obtained high-level secret arts. Thus, he was able to use 2 verbal chants to allow the barrier she faced to loosen, and make her soon be able to break through. But now that she recalled the previous battle, the expression on her face changed slightly. Ling Han was right. If she had done as he just said, she would have been able to end this battle much sooner. She could not help feeling a little reverence towards Ling Han. His insight was too fearsome. Ling Han smiled internally. Who was he? 10,000 years ago, he was considered a royal existence in the world of martial arts. Don't tell me that he would not be able to subdue a little girl. He walked towards Ling Zhongquan, and raised his right hand. Little beast, you dare. Ling Zhongquan glared. If he were to be thrashed by Ling Han, how would he face others in future? Pa! Ling Han's palm descended without any hesitation, giving Ling Zhongquan a heavy slap. See. The other 3 members of the Ling clan and the 5 maidservants simultaneously took in a breath of cold air. He actually did it. The Grand Chief Butler of the Ling clan was actually publicly slapped by a person everyone acknowledged as trash. SS's, no wonder this old dog has such thick skin, just hitting him hurts my hand, Ling Han said with bared teeth. This was natural. Body refining tier meant to use origin power to refine each part of the body and to allow every muscle to be filled with origin power. Every punch and kick would release a fearsome amount of power. Ling Zhongquan was already in the element gathering tier, and has already completely passed through the body refining tier. Thus, his face was naturally completely refined by origin power. Someone from the middle stage of body refining tier may not even able to truly injure him, and only cause him a small pain. To cause him to bleed would require the use of weapons. However, now it was no longer the issue of being injured, but of humiliation. Slapped by a piece of trash who was also a younger relative at the 2nd layer of body refining tier. Moreover, this was done in front of 5 maidservants. What kind of great humiliation was this? If this matter spread out, how would he be able to face others in future? Ling Zhongquan's eyes were about to spit fire. He shouted loudly, "Little beast, this matter would not end like this. You will definitely regret this, definitely. AI, you actually dare to threaten me in front of my follower, what stupidity." Ling Han sighed, and asked Lu Yutong, "Someone is threatening your master, what do you say we should do?" Lu Yutong's beautiful face twitched. She was the princess of the Lu clan, how could she be able to get used to being someone's follower? However, she was still someone who kept her promises, so she immediately asked, "Do you need me to kill him?" Hearing these words, the 2 sons of Ling Zhongquan and Ling Muyun were shocked. Ling Zhongquan was their backbone, the tree that held up their sky. If Ling Zhongquan died, then they too would lose all the power they had in the Ling clan. Ling Han shook his head with a smile. This old dog belongs to my father, so my father should be the one to get rid of him. But, he snapped off a table leg, and weighed it in his hand. He will not be punished with death, but he will not be able to escape another punishment. Peng! He raised the table leg and smacked it on Ling Zhongquan's face. After a heavy sound rang out, Ling Zhongquan opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood and broken teeth. Old dog, my father is risking his life, yet you snatch away his hope. Don't you think you deserve some thrashing? You have your son and grandson, and my father doesn't. Yesterday, you counted on the fact that you were stronger than me, and cruelly beat me to the point of serious injury. Is this the kind of attitude an older relative should have? Since you are without shame, and don't want to act as an older relative, then why do I still have to bother thinking of your face and treat you as an elder? Ling Han thrashed him as he talked. A few hits afterwards, Ling Zhongquan's hair was already all over the place, his face covered with blood. He had already lost at least half the teeth in his mouth. However, although Ling Zhongquan looked pitiful, it did not matter how serious his external injury was, as he would be able to recover from it quickly thanks to the powerful life energy of a martial artist. It had taken internal injury to actually endanger his life. Thus, Ling Han continued thrashing him cheerfully, completely unconcerned that he could actually beat the other to death. Ling Zhongquan no longer made any sound, but he swore in his heart that, in the future, when he had the ability to surpass Ling Dongxing, he would definitely tear this pair of father and son into pieces. My hand's getting tired. Ling Han threw away the stick, and said, Yutong, accompany me on a trip. Yutong. Lu Yutong suddenly felt a shiver. This manner of address really gave her goosebumps. Note. Just in case you feel confused by it, in China, one doesn't simply address a senior or anyone of higher status, or someone of equal status you don't know well using their first name. While there are ways to act even more chummy, this would be like a random peasant addressing Queen Elizabeth using just the name, Elizabeth.